Have you ever heard, as I hand over the device,
this is so awkward.
the device of Paladin information?
Oh dear.
So
I ruined everything.
here's the deal.
Is it all gone wrong?
Now, I've already recorded the segment for the WoW News. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
it was pretty exciting to record. Dakor put his thoughts together, being a more experienced Paladin, of course.
Oh, whoops.
I actually think fair play, Blizz. They're actually giving it a proper try. And it seems so far that they're...
It's okay. You probably didn't close OBS.
probably didn't kill the stream.
No, that's fine.
I didn't. But it seems that they are really trying to just meet players' criticisms. I mean, damn, if you guys wanted a bit more sustain... So, in that case, Matt, take it away.
We're looking very well. So I actually... I've looked at some of this, right? I haven't looked at all of it. There's going to be some things I'm going to catch here with you in real time. But okay, so for a quick disclaimer, obviously, all the talents and abilities below have been data mined from 10.07. They haven't said anything. It is literally just, hey, this has been found in the build. Don't trust any of this to go live, but it is kind of what they're literally doing. And obviously, again, this is like talent trees where some of these could be decision nodes. Some of them could be like other sides of the tree. You can't take them together. But these are Dakor's thoughts initially are that there's more sort of survivability, there's more self-sustain, there's passive healing, and also like damaging stuff. So you get a lot more passive healing, like from your existing rotation, in the same way that there used to be healing on Divine Storm. There'll be more things like that. There's more cleave target, more cleave damage for 2 of the targets, which is like one of the weaknesses Paladins have always had. You either go absolutely massive damage in big AoE, or you I guess tap someone in front of you with Crusader Strike. That's one of the problems. There's Execution Sentence, there's Templar's Verdict and Interrupt, stuff like that. So let's actually get into them. I think overall, you've got Blade of Vengeance, which is Blade of Justice, also hits nearby enemies and stuns on Demon Undead for 5 seconds in the same way Wake of Ashes did. So that's just a case of, here's your button that is really annoying to use in AoE because it always does single target and builds your holy power. It'll hit nearby enemies. That's fine. Same with Blessed Champion. Crusader Strike hits 2 targets. One of the things I've noticed from my initial playing of Ret is it is very frustrating that all of your AoE damage comes from either Consecration, which doesn't build holy power, and press and spending on Divine Storm, or Radiant Decree or pressing, stuff like that. You've got Judgment, the same thing, just free cleave. Now, theoretically, you would imagine that you're playing this, you go, okay, you can't just have free cleave all the time because then you're just doing all your single target in AoE. I think that's one of the things they'll probably balance the talent tree so you can't just have everything cleaving all day long. But then there's the Divine Storm, now deals physical and holy damage, which means it can be buffed by physical damage increasing effects, which would be, Mystic Touch would do that. And there's probably a lot of other things as well, but that doesn't remove the fact that it's based off mastery, but it does give them that more like melee focus buff as opposed to just taking the is it Chaos Brand? Is that what it's called? The one from, what do you call it? Are the Bronze Dragonflight the light dragons? We'll get back to that. That's a very interesting question. I have some thoughts on that. Thank you for the couple dollars. What else do we have here? We've got Inquisitor's Ire. Every 3 seconds, gain 5% increased damage to your next Divine Storm, stacking up 10 times. So that's just one of those things where, especially if they keep Imperium Power, which is the proc you get for Divine Storm, that'll just be that more, hey, you can save up big damage for big burst. Which, to be fair, AoE burst is pretty okay for Paladins at the minute, but it's still nice. And then a multi-hit proc for Divine Toll. Throughput stuff, they've got Punishment, which is successfully interrupting an enemy with Rebuke, cast Templar's Verdict, which I think is very interesting from the perspective of how Demon Hunters get their Fury. Fury is the one for Havoc, right? Yes, for correct interrupts. Same with, I think, didn't they have, the Warriors had something about Pummel having some sort of benefit? I can't remember exactly. I haven't seen that, but that's a case of the Blizzard trying to incentivize interrupts in a way that makes more sense. And obviously interrupting isn't the damage loss because it's off the GCD, but it is a little bit of something there, and I think it is just nice to incentivize that. And then Stay of Execution makes Execution Sentence last 6 seconds longer, which gives them more of a window, because I think one of the problems with Ret Paladin is that they are exceedingly bursty, and then outside of that burst they kind of tickle a little bit, So execution sentence lasting longer will give them more potential to, I think, have bigger single target burst theoretically, but a little bit less, I guess, more of it outside of their cooldown windows where it all gets funneled in, but also a little bit more skill involved in that. And then Expurgation, which is the extra Blade of Justice damage that's based on crits. It's removed the crit element, which will mean that you don't have to crit, which means your damage spikiness isn't as insane. You kind of get more natural stuff. And it also takes their crit scaling down a little bit, because I know crit scaling has been pretty strong for them. But then, of course, Physical Presence then increases crit strike damage and auto crit chance, which means there as well. Yeah, what do you mean outside of the burst? A good red is always in burst and off CDs. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of fair. But, you do just literally have downtime sometimes. Obviously, if you play correctly around like pulls and stuff, you can utilize that effectively. But it is frustrating when you're having so much fun inside your big windows, especially when you're running Crusade, and then it goes away. You're like, okay, I like pressing a couple buttons slowly. But that's always the problem World of Warcraft has with cooldown windows. You just go, this is super, super fun when I'm in my window. This is great. This is wonderful. I love this. And then you're doing nothing outside of that. That's the frustration they always have. Expurgation was also changed to Radiant damage, Holy and Fire, so it can proc the stupid ring. That's a pretty good thing, as well as the fact that the Holy damage means it's mastery, which is one of the fundamental problems, I think, is also, and I'm sure it's solved in different ways here, but their problem being just mastery. Because, and this is something I meant to have a chat at some point with you, Michael, but I think mastery needs removed from World of Warcraft because it ruins scaling in a bunch of ways.
Probably.
Yeah, but I'll talk about that later.
I'm just going to do a quick foam roll so that I can continue to sit.
Okay, very good. The shit that goes down here, I swear. Judgment, also dealing physical damage, but Justice Holy damage. Yeah, this is just kind of I don't want to say neutralizing the effect of the mastery, but kind of spreading it out a little bit more instead of it being. And I think Feral Druid has a little bit of this same problem, where whenever you're pressing buttons and they're not your big buttons, you're doing nothing. You're tickling the enemy, but that's because mastery is a percentage on like your bleeds and your finishers. So the more mastery you have, you'll be doing more damage, but the less comparatively like your shred will do. And it's been the same with Paladin for the longest time now, where you're just going, okay, I will press Crusader Strike, 5 damage. I'll press Templar's Verdict, 200k damage. Fantastic. Wonderful. So they're working through and solving that. High Lord Judgment causes targets increased damage from your next 2 Holy Power abilities, which is going to... It's interesting because I think that, again, it smooths things out. Because, you'd have to weave a Judgment before everything, if possible, to get that kind of spike. No, that helps out. But I think of everything, the thing I'm most, excited by is Crusading Strikes. So, Crusader Strike replaces your auto attacks, and instead of granting Holy Power, you now generate X Holy Power every 10 seconds. Which I think it'll be a small number. But I think one of the problems I've had playing Ret, and this is with the M+ build where you just have like Radiant Decree coming up all the time. You've got Exorcism, which you want to drop your Consec and spread your Exorcism. And you also have 47 charges every button. You're really you're kind of GCD locked in a way. And you always just have something to press. And it always feels like you're sitting wasting Crusader Strike charges because you're pressing your other buttons, and that feels bad. So that being a more passive thing is going to smooth things out. In the same way that now playing with Demon's Bite instead of Demon Blades as a Demon Hunter, I think is generally a bad idea because you don't have the time to fit them in. Whereas the auto attacks proccing actually does give you the extra resource and makes it makes heavier button builds a little bit more viable, I think, overall. And then Holy Power Generation is also just getting more, because one of the problems is
lots more.
Yeah, just here's Crusader Strike, gives you 2 now, assuming that's going up from 1 to 2. Blade of Justice 2 charges, so you have, theoretically 2 charges is just 1 extra during a fight, but because of how things pan out, it actually ends up being a little bit more. And that's one of the things of resource generation is one of the key things. If you can generate resource correctly as Paladin, you do a lot of damage. If you can't, you suck. But then, obviously they've got just cooldown reductions, resets, extra charges, extra holy power. Just a lot of more things that will feel good instead of being, because I think every other class has got cool things like this. Largely. They've had very cool, hey, here's all the extra resources you could ever like deal with. Like playing monk has felt pretty interesting to me.
The second you get so much haste that it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, you're just
I
going.
remember that in
yeah.
BFA? I think it was BFA.
I can't remember, but even like coming into it here from playing it a little bit in Shadowlands to playing it now, you're going, oh, I am smashing buttons like crazy, and I remember there used to be times where you would be stuck like with very little chi and kind of worrying about double tapping your tiger palm without waiting loads. Obviously you could, weave your chi wave or your chi burst and then your expel harm in there. But I always felt like you're sitting there with no chi. You're like, oh my god, lunge up, what do I do? But now it feels the other way around where you have so much chi. You're like, how do I actually manage this correctly? How do I correctly do this? How do I not overcap my chi? At least that's what it feels like to me. I think they're kind of going for... I think I've really liked that. I've really liked how that's felt on basically every... Especially melee classes. Every melee class I felt has been a lot more... You've got all the buttons in the world. Press them all day long. Now it's not about like managing your resources correctly in the same way. It's more about you kind of... You always have a button to press. It's just which button do you press first is the skill. As opposed to you can't press any buttons because you're out of resources. There's no skill involved here. But I think the one thing that people will be more happy about, especially based on them saying that Red Paladins have the highest death rate
that was so
of
funny
any class.
to me.
You wouldn't expect that from a Paladin, but it's because despite Divine Shield, despite Lay on Hands, despite Bop, despite Freedom
Keep on going
and Divine
and
Steed
going
and Shield of Vengeance, they are actually fairly squishy. It's hard to understand that, but I think everyone, outside of maybe Shamans, because they have Astral Shift's pretty... is that Shift? I can never remember. Oh yeah, it's Shift. It's not because recalls the Hearth. There's everyone else has so many tools. Even as Feral Druid, I've got 47 buttons I can press to not die. Even if it's something weak like Renewal, I still get like my instant regrowth whenever I press obviously that costs a GCD to heal myself, but there's downtime in that class anyway, so I can heal myself reliably. I have Survival Instinct. I have Bark Skin. I have 47 ways out of anything. I have Bear Form. Frenzied Regen. You're like, okay, sure. And then you go to Paladin and you go, yeah, bubble. And then if you don't have that, you're dead, basically. So they've added a lot of passive healing, which I think is fun, in the way that they've been worried about this before. They've been worried about giving too much off-spec or kind of, I guess, utility to classes. But they've been able to solve that with actual utility, but not with Paladins. It's like, as a druid, I have so much CC that, it's like sparks coming Razageth. I'm just like, I've got all the buttons in the world to do this. And then I play a Paladin, I'm like, what? Oh, there's a mob. What do I do? Blinding Light, I guess? Cool. But if I take Blinding Light, I don't get Devo Aura, so I'm kind of shit out of luck on utility. So they fixed that by going, Templar's Verdict heals you for all the damage it deals. And it's increased by 50% when you hit a stun target. Which means they're replacing Justicar's Vengeance. Because that's just what Justicar's Vengeance does.
Huh.
No one liked that ability. Unless
I think I'm the only person who thought it was cool. But that's it. I think it was maybe cooler in concept than in reality, one of those things. Or like with the flow of the spec.
So, I thought it was very cool, but only because I was one-shotting people that started leeching with it.
Fair.
Every other time.
Fair.
Yep. Every other time it was pointless. But then, you've also got Divine Storm healing you for a percentage of your max health. Just means you're going to be constantly more healed up. You've got Lightfoot Blessing giving Divine Storm a heal for allies for max health. And that's just like anyone, you can see immediately, you go, oh, well, what does a Paladin bring to the table? Oh, a Paladin brings to the table that there is a constant amount of incoming healing. Especially on imagine that, you Divine Storm, 5% max HP. You're doing that and you're on, say, Deathea up on the ad phase. So they're in their cooldown window, they're pressing Divine Storm every maybe 2 GCDs on average, probably, or no, every third, because they're building some holy power. And that's just, that's a lot of healing coming in during a very important phase. And that's going to start to be good, especially when you see that Crusader Strike will self-heal, and so will your auto attacks with Zealots Forever. Obviously, they won't have all these, but even the fact you can pick a couple of these, you're like, yeah, I just refuse to die. Same with Light Celerity. Instant flash of light. That's crazy. You instantly cast a free Word of Glory on yourself every 60 seconds if you're drop below 40%, which is like well-honed instincts on Feral Druid or on the Druid class tree, where you're like, oh, I almost died. Doesn't matter. I'm full health now because I've got Frenzied Regen kicking off, and then Seal of Protection bringing here. Just your defenses are stronger. Here, you just have more strength and stamina. Here, go for it. You've got more slows. It's crazy.
It's just kind of going through everything they do and saying, this is better, this is better, this is better, this is better, this is better.
And it's very much, it's not the utility I think people would have wanted initially. It's not the utility that is, hey, you can now do everything. You can now stun mobs for 47 years. You can pull people over to you to save their life. You can, well, I suppose I could always bubble, but like you can bubble every 1 minute to drop things like AMS. It's none of that. It's a lot of it is just, hey, here you can just heal like crazy. You can heal like crazy and do cleave. And also all your damage isn't in Divine Storm and Templar's Verdict. Have fun. So I think that's one of the... Well, obviously we have to see how it fully is, and there's probably going to be a lot more to it. But it feels like a pretty strong rework that doesn't remove the existing parts of the class that works, which I think is the interesting part that because I haven't played any like Ret in AoE with the changes, but then I did like a couple dungeons there. I think that was last night actually, and I just went, I can see how like Consec and Exorcism, and then Consecration flaring up. I can see Radiant Decree, because I thought, why would you ever take Radiant Decree? Wake of Ashes is better because it generates more Holy Power, but then pressing that every 15 seconds with Holy Power has felt good enough. So like I can see why they want to keep some of the stuff around. Keep some of the stuff actually there, because it's not terrible. It doesn't need like a full WoD to Legion overhaul. It doesn't need to be replaced. It just needs to be very very brought up in terms of what it can do. Not necessarily made more complex to play, but just more complexity and more things added to their buttons that happen and work like they have everyone else. And it seems like it just took them time to kind of get in there. And now they're going for it, which is great.
Yeah.
Although, obviously, Dakor's still not happy. Because...
Divine Tool, 40-yard range.
Yeah, he wants Divine Tool of a 40-yard range because it doesn't have that versus every other thing. And that's probably just an oversight. Also, yeah, mouse overs are bugged. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. Great. Yeah, there's times I just be clicking. Shit doesn't happen. Let alone that mouse button like 4 and 5, whatever.
Oh, don't work mouse overs?
Don't work with mouse overs, which is insane.
What was I playing recently that I noticed that was really bad? It was Evoker. Because I had Verdant Embrace, which is the dash, and also Rescue on my mouse button, because I thought those were great. And then I forgot about the mouse over thing. And then I tried to use it. Oh yeah, I have to click on a target, move my mouse away from the frame, and then press them. So I have to reband those. Please, Blizzard, change how that works. Thank you. But good work on Paladins, at least theoretically.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how it goes, because there's a lot of this stuff is Ret specific. There's quite a lot of this doesn't fix the problems with the class tree, but we haven't seen any talent position changes. So they could be solving that as well at the same time. It's just... We'll have to see. I'm pretty excited though. And at least so far, I've not had that bad a time as Ret. But then I've not, when the rubber hits the road, when enemy abilities start to hurt and you need defensives, or you need to start CCing mobs in a chain, I haven't hit that point yet. Just yet. But also, yeah, no more movement. They haven't got their, I can't remember the name of it, but what was this thing called? Conduits. I'm actively going out of my head to bleed all information from Shadowlands away.
Yes,
definitely. And that includes those things. The 200-year-long Divine Steed. I really want that back. Really desperately.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, that was good. Now when it lasts 3 seconds, you're like, oh, what is this poverty tier movement? Why are Death Knights faster than me? This doesn't feel right. That's wrong.
That's what I love doing in Raid.
Yeah. Oh,
it's like God. Pop gets a certain difference, distance moving super slowly as a DK, and then you're like, I'm a priest. He's like, come back here. Life grip you away.